Hello all, and thank you for joining our presentation today on what's new in Keyshot 11. Here's a look at the outline for today. So we'll start off with a brief introduction of myself and PDSVISION, and we'll also cover these topics: FBX deformable animations, physics simulation, the 3D paint tool, the color material finish CMF tool, and the web viewer. You'll also see me go through a demonstration, and we'll have time for Q&A. So a little bit about myself. My name is Bill, and I'm a technical specialist, and my experience includes positions in industrial design, rendering, and additive manufacturing. PDSVISION, we're a global provider of services focused on helping companies successfully enable their digital transformation journey. We are considered the leading and trusted advisor within the product development sectors, and we achieve this by combining best-in-class software solutions, tech support, and professional training with divisions located across the globe. We also provide technology solutions that enhance how products are developed and manufactured. Here's a timeline below. So a lot of you probably know us previously as Boundary Systems. Boundary Systems was founded in Cleveland, Ohio, around 2006. Between 2007 and 2008, PDSVISION Group was founded in Stockholm, Sweden. In 2009, Boundary Systems became a preferred Windchill partner. Between 2013 and 2014, Boundary Systems expanded globally into South Africa. And between 2017 and 2018, PDSVISION Group acquired Boundary Systems, and more recently here, between 2019 and 2020, PDSVISION Group acquired NET in Germany. Software solutions that we provide are the PTC software suite, including Creo Parametric, Creo Simulate, Creo Machining, Windchill, and ThingWorks. And besides the PTC software suite, we also have other solutions like eTraj, Moldx 3D, and Keyshot. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about and show in the demo is the 3D paint tool. This is a really cool tool that was just added to Keyshot 11, and this basically allows you to select a component in Keyshot and using a paintbrush directly paint on top of that model. For those of you that have the license to use the material graph like you see up here in this image, you can add that node to the diffuse, to the bump map even, and then from there you can start to work like you can see here below with the paintbrush, where you can adjust the size of the paintbrush, the opacity. You can add layers too, kind of like you can in Photoshop. And then here to the right is a character that I created in Blender 3D, and I named him Oscar. And he lives somewhere down in Tampa, Florida. Okay. We'll also take a look at the color material finish tool, or CMF tool. And this basically allows you to take like a more product design render that you have in Keyshot and output a render with callouts that have information on color, material, and finish. All right, we'll also take a look at FBX deformable animation. So previously you could only export a 3D model of a character, or in this case, an environment model like a tree. You could only export something like that from Maya, Blender 3D, or 3ds Studio Max that has bones that kind of deform the mesh and animate it with the Alembic or .abc file type. But with Keyshot 11, you can also export that stuff from those softwares as a FBX file. So we'll take a look at that as well. Physics simulation. Physics simulation allows Keyshot users to create a keyframe animation of the simulated physics and collision detection. So in this example here, I'll just kind of show you a brief example in the demo where you can select the components that you want to apply the simulation to, and you can adjust some settings for the simulation time, keyframes per second, the quality, gravity, which we have set to the natural natural gravity that we have here on Earth, adjust the friction, and you can also see that once you begin that simulation, when it's finished, it adds a keyframe below to the animation timeline. So that's new to the Keyshot 11 as well. And then here to the right is a snapshot of an animation that I created with the with a strong wind that's blowing the fruit off this tree here. So we'll take a look at that as well. All right. And also, last but not least, we'll take a look at the web viewer. And this allows you to upload scenes to the Keyshot cloud and share interactive scenes to others across browser, desktop, and mobile devices with a single link. And you can also view the different material variations of the scene objects as well. So in this case down here, we have the trunk of the tree, the branches, we have the leaves and the fruit, and we can go into each one of those and experiment and see what this tree looks like by changing the material types for the different components. And here to the left, you can see that when we upload that to the cloud to be seen on the viewer, we have options to control the minimum and maximum resolution. We can also bake texture. So if you have more high-end texture stuff, you can select this box here to bake that. And you can also create a password that you can use, because the idea here is that you can create a link to be shared with somebody of your model. And if you only want them to have access to it, you can set a password so that they have to enter in a password before they're able to view this. Okay, so now let's go right into the demo here, and we'll start off looking at the 3D Paint tool. So I'm going to switch over to Keyshot, and here's Oscar. All right, and you can see that already I've created some textures using the 3D paintbrush on his shirt. So we have this Hawaiian shirt, and there's layers that I created to get this effect, and we have a little image on the t-shirt as well. So let's go now and take a look here to the right. I've already kind of started creating it, but to start at square one, I can just start getting rid of these layers and delete it. And let's just add another layer here. And I'm also going to go in here and I'm going to select the shirt and isolate that shirt. So I'm just viewing the shirt there. And I'll go back to material. So if I scroll up here, you can see that we have the paintbrush. We can also use the stamp tool. We're not really brushing that texture on, but just stamping it on. And we also have the eraser to remove any unwanted textures from the shirt. This is where we would adjust the size of the brush, the opacity of the brush. You can adjust the angle as well. And we also have these layers down here. So I'm going to start off by just searching in here, and I'll zoom in a bit as well. And let's go ahead and find the brush or the texture that I want. I'll find this Hawaiian texture here, and you can see it adds it to this little thumbnail image here. And at this point, in order to paint that on, I actually have to click this paint button. And then from here, I could either just stamp it on or brush it on. I can come in here, start to paint that on. All right, so this is the stamp version. There's also the brush version, and that's where I can kind of click and drag and brush that texture on where I want it. Now, if I wanted to kind of start to blend these in, I have more control. So I can scroll down a little bit and I can say, hey, this is layer one. But let's also add another layer and call that layer two. All right, so now that I've got that layer, I'm gonna go up here and say, hey, I wanna blend that texture in with another one. I can go in here and find another texture, add that in, but I want to adjust the opacity because I don't want it to override completely the texture underneath it. So let's bring down the opacity a little bit, and I'll start to add that by first clicking on, we got paint there. So you can see that texture is coming in, right? But it's blending in with that texture behind it. All right, you can also change the actual shape of the brush as well. So if you have an image where you've created a personal shape that you've sketched in Photoshop that you export as a PNG, for example, I can go in here and say, hey, I want to change the actual shape of my brush. And I can actually come in here and select these green leaves, for example. Right, and now I can use that kind of as like a textile to kind of, change the shape of that, right? So that's that. That's the 3D Paint tool. All right, and now I'm gonna go into the color material finish tool. So let's switch over back to that. And just to view, another example of a texture that was created, here's another texture here with the Hawaiian girl on it. All right. So it might take you a little work. You have to kind of, move the camera around the object and paint on all sides of the object, obviously. But if you take some time, you can get some pretty cool effects like you see here. All right, so now switching to the CMF tool. So again, here's a product. This is a shoe that was created. And the idea here is that, we want to show call outs on the shoe for the different materials and finishes. So if I go up here and I access the material information manager and select that, right now we're viewing all the different materials that we have. But if I go to project, we're viewing just the materials that are on the shoe. And what we can do in here is insert information into these columns. So we have a column for the name, the color of the component, the finish, material, vendor, contact, reference image, and also price of that material. All right, so basically I can come in here and say, hey, you know what, this finish should be changed to, shiny, for example, type that in, right? I can do that for each one. For the reference image, if I select here, I can choose whether or not I want to display that material by the Keyshot ball. But here's the disc version that we see here. There's the cloth drape version. So you can kind of go in here and choose the version that you want to be able to display that material. We'll keep the cloth ball version. I also have the ability to add more information to this. So if I want to add another column, for example, I can add one. Here's one right here, contact, right? Who's the contact for the vendor to purchase this material. To add another column, I can click the little plus symbol here and type in the information that I want. And when I click OK, we can now see that we've added that column here to the right. Now I can go back if I want and reorder this. I can say, hey, I want to take this column and move that up here somewhere. Now it's here. Okay. All right. So once we have this information, and we've assigned the material and the finish and entered any information in these columns that we needed, we now have to go to render and choose the CMF tab. All right, and that allows us to come into this window that we've seen before, where it's asking us, what do we want to save the render as far as its name, location of the save, the format, whether it's a PNG, JPEG, for example. But to add the actual callouts based on the information that we just entered, I go to set up callouts, click here, and I would basically just come in here and select the callouts for each one, and it's going to add it. Okay. So once you have that, you would come down here to render and click on render. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to create this folder. And within that folder, there is an HTML file. I've already got that file open, which is right here. So here's this shoe that I created with these callouts. And if I scroll down, it shows each component. It gives the name, the color, finish, material, and the vendor price, for example. And this can be shared with anyone because it's basically just an HTML. So that's that. So now let's take a look at FBX deformable animations. and I'm gonna switch over to Blender 3D. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of this. So this is a free software that anybody can download to create 3D models for industrial design, animation, and gaming. So this is a tree that I created inside Blender, and you can see that I actually put bones inside the tree. So the idea here is that previously you can only export an Alembic file that had bones that deformed a mesh into Keyshot, but now you can also export an FBX file. So here's the rig tree with the bones and the animation that I created, and to export it, I would just go here to File, Export, FBX, okay? And then from there, you import it into Keyshot, and that's what we're seeing here. And if I go over here to the animation, I actually have a video of this too that I can share. So let's go find that. So this is the animation in Keyshot, just a sample. You can see that that FBX was imported into Keyshot, and we also have that animation in Keyshot as well now. All right, we also have the physics simulation. So that basically allows you to select components of your Keyshot scene and create a simulation based on real world settings. So I'm going to go in here and kind of show you how you would start to do that. So in this case, you would just select whatever it is that you want to apply that simulation to. So like the fruit here, for example, then I would go into tools, and then I would go into physics simulation. And once in there, I would find the fruit in my model tree. It would actually be this one here. Yep. And once I have all that stuff, I would come in here and I'd say, hey, what's the simulation time for this, right? Do I want 1 second, 3 seconds, 10, 20 keyframes per second? You can adjust the simulation quality. Gravity can be adjusted and changed. Friction, so if you want something to have more friction and slide less on a surface, you can change that. Bounciness. And then once you do that, you select what you want to simulate. You would click the Begin Simulation button. And to show a video of that here, I'm going to go into the video, and once you click that button, you'll see that it's going to simulate that fruit blowing around there. And then once that's finished, you can export the real deal, and we pull up this animation as well and show that. So you can see here that, if I stop it here, this is the starting point with the fruit on the tree, and then a strong wind comes, and then we have the simulation of the fruit flying around in that Keyshot scene. Okay, so now let's take a look at the web viewer. All right. So the actual web viewer, if you have multi-materials in your scene, you can share those. So for those of you that know what I'm talking about, if I come in here and select like one of these balls that represent the leaves of the tree, if I go to the multi-material button, you can see that this one only has one, but you could have many in here. You can have like three versions of the leaves, versions of the fruit and the trunk, for example. So I actually have an example that I created, but what you would do is you would come in here and say File, upload to Keyshot Web Viewer, adjust the settings that I showed you in the slides, and then once you do that, if I switch back over to the actual web viewer, you can view that. So you can actually, like I mentioned before, have a password set up for security if you only want certain people to be able to view this. So I can type in my password. And we'll see it start to render out here in the web viewer. So once I'm in here, I can rotate around the model, And then I can come in here and look at different options for this model. I can say, hey, let's take a look at a different color for the fruit. I can come in here and grab purple, right, and see it change in real time. Red and white, right? I can change the leaves here as well. Even this ground plane that I currently have. And the trunk of the tree as well. And I, of course, used a low polygon model for this, just because I didn't want to have any issues with the upload. It really gives you the idea of the capability of this tool. So yeah, so that's rundown for what's new in Keyshot 11. So at this moment, well, before I get into that, just want to talk to you about our training. So if you want to learn more about Keyshot, our presenters are all certified trainers and can dive deep into each topic. We can train on site here. We can train at your site virtually as well. And you can check our website for a full schedule of classes. So I'll open it up to you guys now for questions if you have any. While we're waiting for some questions, just to mention, if you want to ask me anything about Keyshot, you can contact me at my email, bdros@pdsvision.us. To get in touch with sales, contact them at sales@pdsvision.us as well. And we also have lots of videos that are pretty informative on our YouTube channel as well. All right, so it looks like we don't have any questions coming in. I want to thank you guys for attending the presentation today, and I hope to hear from you. Thanks.